one of my schoolmates at the last reunion, he said to me, you were talking about Thelonious Monk when you were 14 years old, and I thought you were nuts, and now I realize you were ahead of your time. But it wasn't like I was lording it over. The joke among my friends when we'd be driving around at night, when we had our licenses in high school, and there'd be a late night jazz show on, they could turn it on. I could immediately tell them what the record was, and like, oh, this guy's the savant who can hear 8 bars of music, and it still goes on. I mean, I was at a dinner with friends. This is about 5 or 6 years ago in St. Louis, and we're at the best restaurant in town. And we're sitting there talking. I said, "Wait a minute, that's a Coltrane solo they're playing. I can't believe they're playing a Coltrane record in this restaurant." They say you haven't changed since high school. Um, but uh, but you know, let me go back to those early years because, as I say, exposure is a big part of it. And there was a period, I was 15. I had one friend who liked jazz, and a nightclub or a bar that had been in existence in St. Louis started to have a jazz policy. And the first artist they brought in was John Coltrane and his quartet. So um, my friend's father took the two of us to see Coltrane. We're 15 years old. And the whole night was incredible. And at the end of the night, my friend's father asked the waiter, "Can I see the owner? Is the owner around?" And the owner came out. He said, "Look, I've got a proposition for you. These two kids love this music. It makes no sense to me. If you will let them come in without an adult, I will promise you, number one, that they will spend the minimum on Coca-Cola, and number two, that at the end of the night, I will be here to pick them up." And the guy said, "Okay, fine." So in a 6 month period before the place changed its policy, and I'm 15 years old, the John Coltrane Quartet, the Sonny Rollins Quartet, Roland Kirk before he was Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Terry Gibbs with a pianist named Alice McLeod, who a month later met John Coltrane and became Alice Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie with James Moody and Kenny Barron, the Art Blakey Jazz Messengers with Freddie Hubbard and Curtis Fuller and Wayne Shorter and Cedar Walton. And this was in a 6 month period. And this reinforced this passion I had to the point where this is just going to be, it was part of my life. That was it. It was going to be part of my life. Then when I got to Harvard, where I went to college, um, early in freshman year, the radio station came to the dining hall to recruit students. And the jazz show was on. Oh, they have a jazz show. I'll go and try out to be a jazz DJ. And they would train people by putting them on the morning shows and having a member sitting there to coach them. And I'm really going to wow these people. I'm going to play Ornette Coleman, which is probably beyond what they listen to. I'm going to play this and that. And I introduced Art Blakey as the father of hard bop, and the trainer said to me, "No, that was Charlie Parker." He said, "No, that's bebop. This is hard bop." And I was like, "Oh, this kid knows something." So so I then became a radio DJ. And that's what got me through college. That was my extracurricular activity. I went on to be president of the WHRB, the radio station. And in my senior year, I had a Monday night show, a 1 hour show, and I got a call in January from someone who was the associate editor of an underground paper called Boston After Dark. And it was Boston's attempt to become the version of the Village Voice, basically. And he said, "Listen, I listened to your show, and you clearly know something about jazz. You know a lot more than any of the music critics on the staff here because they all know rock and roll. And the Boston Globe's having a jazz festival. They just bought a full page ad and they want us to review the festival. And if you will review the festival, we'll give you free tickets and all your friends can read your article because we give them out free in dining halls in universities. So at the time, I hated to write. Okay. I never took a writing course in college. Harvard used to have a lot of courses where you could either write a term paper or take an extra exam, and I always opted for the extra exam because I didn't like to write. But I thought, well, this is great, and I know my problem with people who write about jazz. I'm going to address it right now. So my first review said, "Let me tell you before I start, these are the artists who appeared who I liked before I got here, and these are the ones I didn't particularly like. So if I rave about Nina Simone and I say I wasn't a particular fan, or if I criticize Errol Garner and say, well, I always loved his music, take that in that context, because I thought that's what people were leaving out, that they had already made a lot of predeterminations about what they were writing about. You can only go so far with that approach, you know. But then they asked me to do an interview and nightclub review of Gary Burton when Larry Coryell had just left his band and Jerry Hahn had come in as his new guitarist. So he was my first interview for print. I had done interviews on my radio show, and my first nightclub review, and that got me started. Then when I came back to start Harvard Law School in September, the paper said, look, we're now going to pay for articles and we want you to keep contributing. And I thought, oh, this is good. I need some pocket money. And the deadlines are weekly. So I should be able to meet my deadlines, even though I've got law school to deal with. And that's when I became a regular writer.